Hello, my name is Jania Otey, and in this study, we will examine what happens when a servant does not serve. We have been purchased by the blood of Christ to serve God. In 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 22, Paul wrote, "For he who is called in the Lord while a slave is the Lord's freedman. Likewise, he who is called while free is Christ's slave." Other versions also use the word servant instead of slave. In a sense, as children of God, as Christians, we have been hired by Him to serve. When we faithfully completed our duties, we will be rewarded by spending eternity in heaven with the Father. But what happens when we don't fulfill our duties that God has called us to do? On a secular job, we receive warnings, probation, or even get fired. And sometimes we don't. Those are external consequences for ill job performance. Isn't that similar to God's mercy and patience with us? At times we fall short of serving God and giving Him the glory, but He still wakes us up to see another day and gives us a chance to get it right. Yet He also reminds us that tomorrow is not promised. There are also internal consequences for not serving the Lord as we should, and we should be disturbed. So what does it mean to serve anyway? In 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 11, Peter reminds Christians who had been dispersed throughout, "If anyone speaks, let him speak as the oracles of God. If anyone ministers, let him do it as with the ability which God supplies, that in all things God may be glorified through Jesus Christ, to whom belong the glory and dominion forever. Amen." Now, the word minister in this verse means to serve or to attend to anything that may serve or provide for another's interests or necessities. Look at Romans chapter 16, verses 1 through 2. In Paul's letter to the saints at Rome, he wrote, "I commend to you Phoebe, our sister, who is a servant of the church in Cenchrea, that you may receive her in the Lord in a manner worthy of the saints, and assist her in whatever business she has need of you, for indeed she has been a helper of many, and of myself also." So Phoebe in these verses is described as a sister, a servant, and a helper of many. Now, Paul shows his appreciation for Phoebe's service in the church by mentioning her by name in his letter. When one is a servant, they execute the commands of another, especially a master. They are under submission to another. Now, in our case, we voluntarily submit to God, who has commanded us to serve Him and others. So what does it mean to be unnerved? It means to deprive of courage, strength, or steadfastness, to cause someone to be nervous. Now, there are earthly consequences for failing to serve God as we should. Being devoid of mental and spiritual peace are certainly some of them. When we look at a few Bible examples of how life is so unnerving to a servant who isn't serving, we will see some of those consequences. Our conscience should be unnerved if we choose not to serve. Turn to 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 8. The king of Syria was at war with the king of Israel. Elisha the prophet sent word to the king of Israel regarding the king of Syria's plans, which saved the king of Israel more than once or twice. 2 Kings 6, verses 9 through 10. Now later, the Syrian king besieged Samaria, which is located in Israel. 2 Kings 6:24. Due to the war, there was a great famine in the land. The famine was so bad that people were eating animal parts that they normally wouldn't eat, and they had to pay outrageous prices for them. Verse 25. Now the famine was so severe that 2 women agreed to eat one of their sons on one day and to boil and eat the other son the next day. But on the second day, one of the women hid her son, and she cried out to the king of Israel about this. Verses 28 through 30. The king of Israel sent a messenger to cut off the head of Elisha, because he blamed Elisha for all of their troubles. 2 Kings chapter 6, verses 31 through 32. Let's turn to 2 Kings chapter 7, verse 1. Elisha told the messenger, "Hear the word of the Lord. Thus says the Lord, tomorrow about this time a seah of fine flour shall be sold for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel at the gate of Samaria." So in other words, the famine would end and food would be plentiful and affordable again. Now, in the next few verses, we read about 4 men who were lepers, and they decided to go to the Syrian camp, having rationalized that if they stayed where they were, they would die. If the Syrians wanted to kill them, they would die. But maybe they would spare them. 2 Kings 7, verses 3 through 4. Now in verses 5 through 7, we read that the lepers went into the Syrian camp and no one was there. And the Lord made the Syrian army hear the sound of the horses and chariots, and the Syrians thought that the king of Israel was in cahoots with the Hittites and the kings of Egypt to fight against them. So they fled and left their possessions and food. So all the lepers went into a tent and ate and drank and carried off silver and gold and clothing, and they hid them. They went into another tent and they did the same thing, 2 Kings chapter 7, verse 8. Let's take a close look at verses 9 through 11. So these are the lepers that are speaking here. Then they said to one another, "We are not doing right. This day is a day of good news, and we remain silent. If we wait until morning light, some punishment will come upon us. Now therefore, come, let us go and tell the king's household." So they went and called the gatekeepers of the city and told them, saying, "We went to the Syrian camp, and surprisingly no one was there, not a human sound, only horses and donkeys tied and tents intact." And the gatekeepers called out, and they told it to the king's household inside. So what does this all mean? The 4 lepers, perhaps through God's providence, had stumbled across food and raiment for themselves and all of God's people in Israel. Now, their initial reaction was to get what they could and to keep it all to themselves, but they realized that this was not the proper thing to do. Their conscience kicked in as they contemplated their next move. They were no doubt unnerved by the thought of what could happen if they didn't tell the king what they had found. They knew that there would be some type of punishment or consequence for their actions. Look again at verse 9. We are not doing right. This day is a day of good news, and we remain silent. If we wait until morning light, some punishment will come upon us. Now the lepers didn't have mental peace as they wrestled in their minds and with one another about what was the proper thing to do. They chose right and informed the king. These 4 men had an opportunity to serve God's people by letting them know about the goods that were left in the Syrian camp so that others may live and not die also. Well, what can we learn from this account? We also will be presented with opportunities to serve often. The lepers had an opportunity to serve God's people just as we have opportunities to serve his people today. If our hearts are truly set on serving and pleasing God, when opportunities to serve and to help others are presented, we will seize them. In Galatians chapter 6, verse 10, Paul wrote, "Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all, especially to those of the household of faith." When we don't seize those service opportunities, we should be unnerved just like the lepers, because we are passing up a chance, as these 4 men said, to do what is right. The 4 lepers had to make an important decision. And every day when we wake up, we have to make an important decision too. God has given us another opportunity to serve him, but will we seize it? When we serve others, meaning when we render good works and deeds, we are serving Christ. Now, when we choose not to serve, we are choosing not to serve Christ. In Matthew chapter 25, verses 42 through 45, Jesus said, "For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not take me in. Naked, and you did not clothe me, sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they will also answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not minister to you? Then he will answer them, saying, Assuredly, I say to you, inasmuch as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. When we choose not to serve others, we are choosing not to serve Christ. In Titus chapter 3, verse 8, Paul wrote, This is a faithful saying, and these things I want you to affirm constantly, that those who have believed in God should be careful to maintain good works. These things are good and profitable to men. So service is profitable because through our works, we confirm our faith in God. This allows us to have mental peace, knowing that we are storing up treasures in heaven. Matthew chapter 6, verse 20. Now the inverse is also true. James chapter 4, verse 17 reads, Therefore, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. When we have an opportunity to serve and we know that we have a responsibility to do just that, but we choose not to, we should be unnerved like the 4 lepers. I had spent several weeks in Washington, D.C., and the day that I was scheduled to leave, I ran to the store to return an item. I was in a hurry because I had to get back to my sister's house, load up the car, and head to the airport. Now, after finishing up at the store, I was rushing to my car, and I saw an elderly woman walking around the parking lot. She looked like she was having trouble finding her car. I looked at the time, thought about my flight, jumped in the car and started it up, and I started to pull away. Then my conscience kicked in, and I turned around and got out of the car. I approached the woman and asked her if she needed help, and sure enough, she was having difficulty finding her car. I asked her what color it was, and I was able to help her find her vehicle. She thanked me, and I think we even hugged. Like the 4 lepers, I was unnerved when I initially made the decision to leave the parking lot and not help her. I am thankful that I had a change of heart and acted on my responsibility to serve. I would want someone to help me or my loved ones if they were in the same situation. And ladies, you should want to do the same. Now, in the next lesson, we will continue our study and examine what happens when we render slothful service.